week, our new webcast, which we're going to be using to interview friends, people that we know, different people from around the place. And of course, the other day, you would have actually seen our interview with Andrew Bridgen from the UK, which was amazing. If you haven't seen that, go back and take a look on our page. And this webcast goes out on our Facebook page, our X account, and also out on YouTube. You will see there in the corner a little support NZOFP. So if you feel like supporting us or taking a look at our policies or joining, we would love that. Just you can just hold your little phone up to the QR code or go to nzofp.co.nz. But tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to one of our candidates and give you a chance to get to know him. So this is the New Zealand Outdoors and Freedom Party's candidate for Northland. Please welcome Sean Brickland.
Evening, Aly. Lovely evening for it, isn't it?
Good evening.
Been a beautiful day in Northland today, I tell you. We've had one of those days, those midwinter. Well, I actually think we're still in autumn, but don't talk to my daffodils because they're already flowering at the moment, so that's a bit out of season. But
they don't call it the winterless north for nothing, do they?
No. Yeah, we're all messed up here. Out of season.
Oh, we kind of love it. I love it.
Yeah,
it's my second favourite place to where I live, actually, in New Zealand. Now, folks that are actually tuned in, that are listening or watching us, do feel free to chat, and we can actually see that chat. And if you've got questions for Sean or for me or for the party, you can pop them in there, and hopefully I'll get a chance to get across, look at them, and we'll try our best to answer them. But Sean is running for Northland, so tell us whereabouts, Sean, the electorate goes from, and a little bit about you, so we can get to know a little bit about you, and our followers can do the same.
Well, the Northland electorate's quite a long one, actually. It goes right down to Tihana, right through to the Cape Reinga. So it's a fairly long electorate. There's a little bit of a divot out of where Whangarei down to Waipu Cove and that area is, but so I've got a fairly big electorate up here, and I love it. It's my home, has been for a very long time now. So it's interesting. It's an interesting climate up here. We midweek this week, it's very cold, and you've got clothes on. There's a bit of rain and that, but you're sweating on the inside, so it's hard to gauge where everything is. So yeah, she's an interesting climate and a great place to live. Like, I think I did a lot of traveling when I was in my earlier days as an entertainer, as you know, Aly, and I got to see a lot of New Zealand. There's not much of New Zealand that I didn't see, and every place has its place in my heart. You know, I lived in Hawke's Bay and Wanganui and all around the north here, and so I've seen quite a part, as well as South Auckland. So there's lots of places that I think of, and I they hold dear to my heart. But Northland is it's special. It's the beaches. It's the culture. We have a beautiful summer, and winters are relatively mild. Like, I laugh because you don't really dress up too much for winter up here. If you've been to the South Island, as you know, you laugh and giggle about what we get into up here in the winter.
Yeah, no, I love coming up there. So tell us a bit about you, Sean, and your background. And obviously you were an entertainer in the 90s, Seamus.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and who you are and your background that's relevant to running as a candidate as well, so people know that.
So for me to be a candidate for a start is in all those travels, Aly, I've watched so much go on in New Zealand. I've seen so many things. I've met so many different people. Right from the person that lives on the street, and being a performer like I was as Seamus, I did a lot of street performance. So, like, I'm sword swallow, juggler, eat fire, do all the dangerous stuff. So I lived on the edge most of the time, and I got to meet lots and lots of different people. Did corporate gigs, so Fortune 500. You know how it is as an entertainer in New Zealand. You've got to do a bit of everything to survive, and I did a bit better than survive. So it was a real experience for me, and we had the farm, like I've been farming all my life as well. Did other things along the way, to supplement the income. Farming's never been when we bought this property that we're on now, which is nearly 50 years ago, we were paying 27% tax interest on our loan, I should say, and that was hard. I was in my late teens, went through big droughts, went through the government dropping the SMPs on farmers at the time, rightly or wrongly. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we didn't really have a chance to prepare for it. I think it put a lot of farmers to the wall. There was a lot of suicide around the time, so I got to see, a lot of that. How my father survived, I'll never know. But I kind of came home during that process, and he got out pretty quick. I think he just wanted to go and do something else, and I couldn't blame him for that. So, I did a lot of that. Born in Paihia in Southern Hawke's Bay. I'm 63 now, funnily enough, so that grey's real. It's not just my kids that have done that to me. So, and went from Hawke's Bay, Southern Hawke's Bay to Wanganui, then up to Maramarua, then into Northland here, back down to Hawke's Bay. Did 3 or 4 different properties there. My father was a farm manager, so he started right at the bottom, knowing nothing about farming. My mother did. She came from a well-established farming family in Wanganui, and then they met and got married and produced me eventually, and kind of that's how it went. So they went from being, shepherds on very, very difficult, under extreme situations that we think about now. Like Mum was telling me just the other day, they started off in a tin hut, like it was tin. There was no proper walls, no insulation, and they were the shepherds in that property. And it was it was not an easy life in those days. So they worked hard. So I come from that background of working hard. There's a fence line that I say to people here, my kids and that, when they go, it's had a hard day's work, and I go, well, you see that fence line? I put that in the dark on a full moon. I carried those posts up there. So that's my measure. I've always worked hard and have a strong work ethic. Also like to play hard, have a bike that I like to ride, have a couple that I like to ride, and do that as well. And as you know, the entertainment game takes you into all sorts of places, so you get to see all sorts of things. I was very lucky. I lived a very sheltered childhood until that.
There's nothing sheltered about the entertainment industry.
No, there's nothing sheltered about the entertainment industry at all. And I did a lot of learning in the time. I did a lot of growing up, and I think that I didn't need to go overseas, although I've been overseas and been to different countries and that, but I did do a lot of growing up in those years, that's for sure. And it was hard, it was hard work, but I enjoyed it. It was like shearing. I loved shearing because I got paid for as much as I got paid for, and that was a good incentive for me. So the better I got, the more money I made. The same with the street and performing. The better you get, the more money you make. So you work pretty hard to do it.
Yeah. And so how long have you been back in Northland from traveling around and coming to actually live?
I never really left, I suppose. I went down to Matamata and worked in a factory there for a little while, as a marketing manager and sales, doing marketing and sales and everything. And I enjoy that. It's as far as street performers go, as you know, Aly, it's marketing and psychology. That's what you're doing.
Yep.
If you throw your entertainment in there, same as you singing, you do that, and it comes and you get to learn. You can see whether, the thing I loved about street performing is that it was immediate gratification.
Yeah.
If you did a bad show, everybody walked away. You didn't make any money. If you did a good show, they stayed, you made money. And so you got to know what worked and what didn't. And I think I use that still now when I'm talking with people. I like to think that usually I have a measure of what's going on and how people are and what they need, It's certainly things have changed the way AI and everything's coming in. That's another whole discussion again.
Yeah.
and reality, what we think is reality. It takes a lot to convince me of anything. I've actually got to see it with my own eyes, and then I question it. I work with a lot of magicians. It's why I'll never play poker with a magician. In fact, I won't go anywhere near cards if there's a magician in the room. But those kind of things, I got to see that firsthand and how things changed in New Zealand. I got to see people struggling. There was a lot of people struggling,
Yeah.
even back in those times. This is, like I was performing probably through the 90s and early 2000s, and that's where I got a real love for the people in New Zealand and our culture, the way that we are as Kiwis, how laid back we
Yeah.
are. I also learned that New Zealand audiences are some of the hardest to entertain in the world, and you'll know that. If
Yeah.
you get it wrong, it doesn't go well for you. So, and I'm trying to bring that through in what I do now. I learned you're never going to please everybody 100% of the time. It's just not possible. But you do your best to try and balance it up. And that's how I am. My shows were pretty hard, as you can imagine. Sword swallower, fire eating, chainsaw juggling kind
I'd
of
rather
guy.
sing. I'd rather sing than swallow swords, I think.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, I mean, you learn to read the room, don't you? You learn to read the room. You learn to connect with people. You learn. I mean, I think about that when it's a lady that she was an advertising lady from New York that I got to know at one point, and she said she walked into a corporate room and she said, "You're the same when you sing."
mm,
She'd walk into a corporate room and she'd make sure she made eye contact with every single person in the room before they sat down at the board,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's a bit the same when
yeah,
you're entertaining. You make sure
yeah.
you connect with people, and that connection is a great tool that it helps you in other ways. Reading the room,
Oh,
is
yeah,
a
totally.
saying in the
And I
entertainment industry.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, Ellie, is working with the kind of people that I did. You got to know honesty. If people
Yeah,
weren't being honest with you and you weren't being honest with your audience, it really went against you.
yeah, yeah.
You have to be honest in all your
Have to be.
dealings.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know, I haven't been a perfect person throughout my life. I've had lots of different things happen and seen lots of different events. And, I've got a bullet wound, I've got a stab wound, I've got all those kind of things, and, and so I've been through a lot of different stuff. But I think that in that time, I really learned that you've got to be most of all honest with yourself. And when you're talking with other
yeah,
people, if you're honest with yourself, you can be honest with them. And I think this is where we're at in a political crossroad at the moment. I think there's a lot
yeah,
of I hear people saying, "Oh, all politicians are dishonest, and all politicians are ripping us off," and it's not actually the case. There's some of them, sure, they do things behind the scenes that other people wouldn't do. But there's also some very good ones in there who are very honest, who actually care about the country as much as the likes of you and I do. So being able to ascertain which ones those are is a really
yeah,
important part of it, and getting to know them. And it's one thing I'd say to everybody, like, go and get to know your local politicians. Go and talk with them. Take the time to go to the meetings. Listen to what they're saying. Have a look at them. See if they look you in the eye and talk about what's real, and they come down to your
yeah.
level, or up to your level, whatever it might be.
I think that's one of the things that attracted me to being in the New Zealand Outdoors and Freedom Party was our commitment to honesty in politics, and and I think that's probably what we're running on this year more than anything, is that overarching thing of transparency and accountability, because it's something we've not seen a lot of in the last 6 years, and we're seeing it all the time within local body politics, as well as
Mm,
main politics, as finding out that people have lied. And I think that's sort of something that we all want to get in there to do, is to keep everybody honest and to keep everybody not manipulating what goes out to the public. I think it could do with a good dose of honesty. And I think that's something I learned, actually came away from the talking to Andrew Bridgen the other night, and some of
mm,
the things he'd gone through as a politician that stood against the grain was absolutely horrific.
yeah.
And so you've got to be prepared. You can't just go in there thinking it's, and I think a lot of people go in there into Parliament with all the best intentions in the world and then get bought, and that's it. And I'll tell you one thing for myself personally, I can't be purchased. I've actually worked for some really wealthy people in my time, and I can't be bought, and I won't be bought. And I think that that's the most important thing about this party, is that we're funded by the individual members that come and pay their $10 for the year. We haven't got big corporate funding or big backers that are pulling strings like puppet strings, and that's literally it. And also we haven't got the party whip situation, which you can see there's been plenty of that in recent times, politicians speaking out and then all of a sudden they get jumped on because they've given an opinion that's not the party's opinion. And I think that that's sort of something that that power and control over us is not what we have in this party, but we have a kind of a fortitude for wanting freedom, looking after our outdoors, and wanting truth from those that go into politics. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. So for you, you're running as a Northland candidate. So what do you think the issues are for you up there, really? Like,
well, there's quite a few things, and some of them are very interrelated. It's like I haven't been in the political scene. Like, I had a little bit to do with the last election, and this election, like, obviously I've come on in the last couple of months, and so I'm having to upskill myself very quickly. And the more I find out, the more rabbit holes you go down, the deeper it gets. Even the information that you get, as you know, we've found in the past, like sometimes you get information, you think, oh, this is what's real. And then the next thing you know, that's not actually what it is. It's something else. So you spend a lot of time doing that research. And that's what I've become, is really interested in the research side of it, and looking at things and seeing. And so, like, Northlands is an interesting place. Like, there's a few things that are going on. Like, we know one of the things is the fishing bill that's been pushed through at the moment. Everybody in Northland eats fish pretty much. There'll be a few that don't, I'm sure, and they'll soon tell me about it. But the reality is that for me, like, it's coming from the background I have, and I'm quite open about my history, and I went through a bit of depression at one stage way back, and it was fishing that saved me. Sitting on the rocks and throwing a line in and going for a walk around the lake or around a beach or something like that made a massive difference in my world. So,
I'm just laughing because we're all around the country. Sorry, we're all getting emergency alerts on our phones. So
is that what's happening?
It's a nationwide test of the emergency alert system. Thanks for doing that during our live stream.
It really is an emergency. Yeah, your Northland candidate's on. It's going to go bad. Yeah.
So that's quite funny. That would have gone off for everybody that was watching, and as well as for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So going back to Northland issues. One that's a Northland issue that you brought up with me, and I'm going to go to a wee video and then we'll come out of that video and have a wee chat. But yeah, Sean took me for a walk. Took me for a drive actually, to show me some different things in his areas, and one of the things was the pine forest. So I'm just going to play the video, and then we'll come back and chat. So Sean's brought me to show me what happens when forestry takes over quality, productive land, and you can see it's right up those hills. It's all being turned from productive land into forestry, Sean.
This hurts.
It's sad.
Yeah, this hurts. Excuse me, but when you when you see the kind of land that this was when we first moved here, this was one of the top beef producing properties around here. It's well known for that, and due to one reason or another, it had to be sold, and I won't go into the details of that. But the reality is that now it's going into forestry. We've lost some of the best productive land in Northland right here, and you can see, if you look out right out through here, you can see how much forestry has gone in, and all that forestry is going to cause problems. And We already know that. We haven't got the infrastructure to deal with it. If Aly has a quick look along the road just here up over to my right, her left, this has only just been newly laid, this lot here, and it's already starting to show signs of wear. There's the big problem that we have here is in the future, how are we going to move these logs, and what happens if the company that actually now owns it just walks away from it in 25 years, 27 years, 30 years? What happens to all this pine tree? Like, I don't even know what to say. This is where I have trouble with words when it hurts me like this one. I came here in the last election, I spent time with Matt King, and we looked at all these properties then and said, won't be long. Well, this is between Whangarei and Dargaville. And Matt and I said then there was a lot of forestry. Well, now it's even worse. It's nearly 3 times the amount then. You just don't see the farmland anymore. And so, as you can see, all those farmhouses, all the barns, everything like that are now empty. There's nobody living in any of them anymore. There's no farm workers working here. In fact, if you turn around, Aly, you can look up here. This wool shed, I actually shore in that wool shed way back. And so there's not the sheep numbers here anymore either.
Yeah.
And so this is why our communities in the north are going to have problems. If they're not having problems now, they will in the future. And once again, we've just lost the sawmill. Kaihu's sawmill's just closed down. Well, when we've got all this forestry, all these pine trees coming in, why are we losing sawmills? Like, you've got to start asking these questions. Why? Why is this happening to us? Why are our communities suffering? Why are communities getting less and less? Why are the rural schools starting to suffer? You know, these questions are what we've got to start looking at. We've got to have the answers for them. And that comes from everybody working together and resolving it. So yeah, this is close to my heart.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was just so shocked when you took me out there and showed me all of that. I just couldn't believe to see. It just made me think back to all the settlers that came in, that all the back-breaking work that they did to actually clear that land and turn it into good pastoral land. And now this is happening, for net zero, you know, I mean, and people sort of think of the billion trees that Shane Jones did, but a lot of those billion trees are these firms. And then today I actually sort of looked up, I mean, the Kauri Forest, a Swiss-German company, a major European investment partnership that's aggressively acquired land in Northland, a single overseas investment office grant of 1,800 hectares of productive beef farms across 6 properties near Whangarei. That might have been what I was looking at. 25.8 million to convert it into pine forests, and that's only some of it. You've got China National Forest, Suatomo Forestry, Hancock Natural Resources, and all of these companies are actually overseas companies. They're not from here.
No.
So that forestry, Sean, is going to create all sorts of problems, isn't it? Like, tell us the problems it's going to create.
And we're not
what can happen.
Yeah, and we're not doing anything about it now. There's just under 160,000 hectares gone into forestry in Northland now, and it's there's just over 400,000 hectares in bush and forestry together combined. So, you know, about about a third of it's gone into forestry. So a third of the farmland's gone into forestry. So if you look at it like that, there's massive problems because we have trouble with our roads up here for a start. Like, our roads, as you would have noticed, Aly, aren't fantastic. I had I've still got the Harley Fat Bob, but I also got a Harley Adventure bike just so that I could ride it on some of our roads because the Fat Bob it was a bit rough on it. So I that's one thing, that's one part of it. And when you've got so many forestry trucks on it, and I think a lot of people don't realise, but one truck movement is equivalent to 5,000 car movements. It can actually be more than that,
Yeah.
depending on the type of vehicles, blah, blah, blah. But, when you've got so many logging trucks, like I know one company in between Dargaville and Whangarei's got over 200 trips each day. Now, when you start adding that up and you start wondering why our roads are going like, it doesn't matter that haven't got the standard of bitumen that we had when we had Marsden Point open. The reality is it doesn't matter what bitumen you've got down; it's going to go bad. I heard it suggested that we should go into concrete. Well, you can't do that in Northland because of the way that the soil structure doesn't allow you to do that. So we have to stick with the bitumen. Otherwise we end up back to metal roads and horse and carts. It's not gonna happen. So we've got to look at alternatives for that. That's a biggie as far as I see it. I know they keep saying there's a 4-lane highway going through from all the way from Auckland. It'll end up going right through to Kirikiri or even further, but that's 20 or 30 years away at the minimum. It's not something that's going to be done tomorrow. In between that time, we're going to have massive changes. You're also getting to a point where some of these forestry blocks are going to start to reach maturity in that time, and some of the companies that are there now, once they reach maturity, are liable to walk away. And we know this happens. I've seen it happen in other areas around the world where they get to that certain point. They've done what they do. They use it as a tax write-off. They get the write-off. They don't mill the logs, and then we've got to deal with it. Somehow somebody's got to deal with what's left over. So that's another issue that's there. That one, we need to incentivize them to do something with those logs. We need to incentivize them to do something with the land to make it productive. We can do that through taxes and make it a lot better that way. But there's ways of doing it that we can do, that we can look at. The big one for me is that we need to look at rail. I know New Zealand First has mentioned this in a couple of their proposals for the future in Northland. I know Shane was talking about it, and I think they're on the right track there. I think getting this little arm out to the port and putting the port into a area where we've got a deep water port and we've got coastal shipping running again, and we're using that train link would be a great thing. Trains are 16 times more efficient than trucks, and coastal shipping's 40 times more efficient than trucks. So when you look at it like that, it starts to make sense that we go towards rail. Now, I know there's a whole lot of truck drivers out there going, oh no, what am I going to do? My job's gone. Well, the reality is that if you're a logging truck driver, you're still going to take the logs from the forestry to the railhead. And if you do it like that and you start to work it out, that takes them mainly off the main roads, like little areas in that. We've got the rails already there. Yes, it needs to be upgraded. And yes, in the initial, depending on how much work you have to do on the rail, it can be equivalent to or greater than building a motorway. But when you start to add that efficiency, your health and safety as well. Like there's I've seen probably 3 or 4 logs drop off truck. I haven't seen them drop off the truck, but I've seen the log laying on the side of the road just between here or here in Whangarei. So those kind of things happen, and the trucks are moving at quite a pace. They've got to maintain a pace as well. If they get too slow, they cause problems. They get too fast, they cause problems. So there is a balance, and I get that as well. So, but rail is a biggie. If we got the rail reinstated, we got it as far as Oturia up north. Perhaps it could be looked at going back into Donnelly's Crossing. It used to be there once upon a time. I don't know the feasibility on doing that, but there are options. So we could do those things that would make a difference. I think that pines in themselves are causing problems with the rivers. If you go up the twin bridges and you look at when they're cutting,
we've seen that everywhere.
Side, you've got slash coming down. Not so bad, the slash in the rivers here. I think I'm not sure why it's different down in places like Gisborne and other places, but we don't tend to see too much pine slash coming down our rivers in the main river, like Mangakā here and that. I don't know about the ones further north. I tend to trout fish the Mangakā here, so I see a little bit more of it, and I think that if we look at things like that, like my own personal view is that we should have a buffer zone between the river and the forestry of 50 or 100 meters, and that should be planted in natives. It should go back to what it used to be. And we need to look at alternatives. We need to look at alternative timbers rather than pine trees. Something that may be slower growing, but it's going to be less damaging to our hillsides and everything.
What about the fire risk, Sean, with all these forests going
So,
in? Like, does Northland have the firefighting capability?
No, we haven't. We haven't got the infrastructure. We've got great teams of firefighters up here. We've got volunteers. I know some of the volunteers from the Dargable station, and great guys. Very passionate, and females as well. Very passionate about what they do. But if we got into a real bad forest fire, they would be stretched. They wouldn't be able to deal with it. We'd be looking to Australia to help us. We could. Like, what we should be doing is we should have, even just in New Zealand, we should have something like the Americans have, something like the big planes that have, that can scoop up water and use that on the fires. Put a special mixture that they use, we need to be looking at things like that. Like, I was in a drought here, I think it was around 1980, 81, that the hillsides here were just, there was no, and you couldn't, if there was nothing left to burn, like the grass was gone, there was just dirt and crickets, and that was really hard. That was just after the SMPs dropped, and that's why there was a lot of very difficult times for farmers during that stage. And I think that if we'd had the amount of forestry that we've got now in that time, and we'd had a fire, we would have been in massive trouble. Like, it would, you just can't stop. You can't understand how much damage fires do. I've been in a couple of smaller ones, and they were scary. And that was pasture fires.
Pines are like bombs. They just go off with the sap.
I can't hear you, Aly. You've dropped off your voices.
Oh, that's a bit funny. I don't know what's happened there. Oh. Okay, you keep talking then.
Is it me that's muted?
I don't know, but I'm talking. So tell me, folks, can you actually hear me? Those that are actually watching, it says that I'm actually on. So, yeah, that's cool. Might be at your end. I'll just see if the chat tells me that it is. Can anybody tell me if we're actually listening? I'll just have a wee look. Let's have a quick look. I think I'm still going. Yeah, I'm good. Yep. Yep, no, it's all good. So,
okay.
Yes, we can hear both. Yep. It's all good. Yep.
Probably me.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Around with something.
So,
no, all good.
Yep. No, that's all good. So,
I just seen a couple of the messages here. The carbon credits. Yep, it is carbon credits. Yep. That's all that they're doing with them. They'll let them stand up to about 27 years, I think it is. I might need to be corrected on that, and then they can walk away from it, and they will just be left. So while they're claiming those carbon credits, this net zero that we're talking about is going to cause. It's massive for New Zealand. Net zero is going to cost us trillions of dollars, way beyond whatever anybody's thinking at the moment. I was looking through figures the other day, and I haven't got them to hand, so I'm not going to even just spout them off. But it's going to cost us far more than what we realise. And because these overseas companies are just going to walk away, and everybody can say, "I know they're not going to," but we don't know that. Look, I've watched things happen in other parts of the world where these companies do just walk away. They get their tax, they get their credits, they write the tax off in New Zealand, and leave us to deal with it. For me, we've got to, like I said, have incentives. We perhaps putting sheep or beef or deer or something like that in there. Me, I prefer deer because I love venison and I love to be hunting, and we don't have them very much now in Northland. They're pretty much all gone. Our pest control boys have done a pretty good job on that. We won't talk about that one. And I think that there's opportunities to do other things, but I also think that using it as a tax write-off, that actually costs us as New Zealand taxpayers in another way, and those things need to be addressed.
Yeah. So how do you feel about, well, obviously we know how you feel about 1080, but how do people feel about 1080 poisons being used up your way, and are they used a lot up your way? It's certainly a big issue for our party that we stand vehemently against.
Yeah,
And we think that there's other ways. And actually, we met with some people up your way, and there is a video on your page where
yeah,
you spoke to a very knowledgeable man
Shane.
who's Shane,
Yep.
who's pretty much understands all that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about 1080 poison and alternatives that can happen.
Yeah, so I think 1080s, it's part of the toolbox, and Shane puts it this way. He goes, it should be something that's part of the toolbox, but it shouldn't be the main thing. Like, there's ways of going about it where 1080 should be the very, very last thing that we use, and that would be in extremely remote places, very hard to get to. But in the interim, we've got these places that you can get to. It's easy to get to. My feeling, though, is that in Northland, I think Northland should be the trial place for this. I think what we should do is actually have a bounty on possums of $10. If you put a bounty of $10 a head on possums, and you did something like that, like around this place within a K of my house, I can shoot 150 in a night when the spring comes in and the willows are out, because I've got so many pine trees around me. You have specified pest control guys, specific guys that go in and do the forestries. They actually do them, but they don't get them all. They're not there all the time. Like, I know the forestries around me, they don't have guys in there all the time. I have to deal with them. I've fruit trees and that on my little property now, and so I've got to deal with them. So to me, if you put a $10 bounty on them, you turn them into a profit situation where you actually took them through to an end item. I know when you're up here, Aly, we talked about that. I talked about it with Shane, and you would increase the profit from that. You'd get $10, about $7.50, I think Shane worked it out, back in tax from them. You could put that through to the bounty on them, and then there's very little makeup. Like, we're spending, what is it I saw the other day, over 60 million a year on 1080 distribution around New Zealand. There's other ways of doing it, and the thing is it hasn't worked because we've still got possums. We've still got those pests. They're just as bad as they have been for a long time. We know, and this comes up on a regular basis, we know that it affects and birds like the kea. We know, we've been through this. I had a big discussion online just recently about that one. And without going into all sorts of details on that, we know there's side effects. We know that it kills dogs. I know that there's secondary poisoning from it. We know that it stays in the bones anywhere up over 3 years in a carcass. It also, in some places where you're hunting for deer, a deer can travel 30 kilometers with enough poison in it to kill it before it dies. So that's 30 kilometers away. Now, you think that you're in an area that's safe as a hunter, you shoot that deer, that puts you at risk. There's all sorts of things like that. And we know that it was developed during the Second World War to be put in water as a human control substance. It was to poison humans off. You don't need to guess who devised that one. And it then went to being used as an insecticide. And now we're the biggest users of it in the world. We use 86% of it. Lots of countries won't import our venison and things like that because we use 1080. We've got a
So again, it's like the GE thing. It's another thing killing our green image with overseas. And I think, the 1080 thing is quite, it's maybe not for some people in cities, but for us in West Coast Tasman, it's a huge thing with water supplies. And like the recent drop down at this Blue Lake, down south, there's a drop down there, and they're going to drop it 150 meters from people's water supply, where their water supply is coming out of creeks. I mean, it just, insanity. And when we were down the coast, we found, the Heafy track, pictures of pellets all over the Heafy track. Well, it only takes a hunter to actually go to take his boots off and scrape his face or something when he's touched a pellet,
Yep.
You know, it's just it's so people are blissfully unaware in the cities that of what can happen with it. It is a very lethal poison, and again, it's the I've seen some real dishonesty around that as well. Friends of mine were deer farmers on the coast, and they lost some deer. This was a few years back, and they got compensated for it, and Doc or whoever it was told them to put it down to track maintenance on the bill. They didn't want to, you know, and that again is that kind of dishonesty inside government and bureaucracy that the New Zealand Outdoors and Freedom Party stands against. I see somebody's gone, don't worry about 1080, what are you going to do about pensioners? Well, dishonesty inside government is what we're going to do across everything, because that dishonesty affects everything. But
so I think
yeah,
the pensioners is a good question, because
yes.
part of the issue that we have now is that we're going into a situation where we haven't got enough young people making enough money to support the age as we go through. Like once upon a time, there was like you go back into the 40s and 50s and things like that. And if you take say China, for example, 30 years ago, China had two parents, and four grandparents looking after one child. That was what they designed it to work as and everything. And then now, 30 years later, you've got that one child now trying to look after those four grandparents and parents. So it's totally tipped, and it can't work unless that child is making X amount of money, a lot more. So we've got to actually start looking at that. We've got to identify it, look at what our numbers are in the population, and actually address how we're going to look after the pensioners and everything. And for me, we need to, I know quite a few. I'm almost at that age myself, and I know quite a few of them. Yeah, and I think it's difficult for me to say, because being close to it, I want to be looked after in my old age. I can't. Both my kids might go, "Oh no, Dad, you're on your own." But
I'm also of the opinion that as we come into our retirement age, and for pensioners, is that we've worked our whole life and paid tax, and the reason we did that was so that we would have a GRI at guaranteed retirement income. And I'm seeing a few policies out there. One particular party at the moment that's calling for a property tax, and I'm like, and she said it with a straight face on television. I'm not going to say which party it is, but this woman said it with a straight face. What about, and the guy said, what about an 85-year-old that's house just happens to be worth $1 million? Oh, well, she can put that off to the side at $14,000 or $17,500 a year or something, and so it gets taken out when you die. I'm like, no, I don't look at it that way. Personally, I look at it as, I raised my kids and we struggled and we strived to hold on to the property and have it there. And I like to think that we worked hard and paid tax, and why should we have our property stripped off us before we're able to give our kids a little bit as we move on? Like, they want to strip the wealth out of property. And most of us that have got property that has increased in value, we are cash poor and asset rich, and there's no way the average 85-year-old is going to be able to pay in Auckland is going to be able to pay 14,000 or 17,500 or whatever the amount was that she said on top of the rates as a property tax. I'm like, we it's kind of like there's this little bit of kind of, I hear it all the time, and it really annoys me because I'm a baby boomer. I hate that boomer hate thing that's going on now. It's as if we've done something wrong, and we haven't. We've worked our butts off. You were talking about how when your parents, it was 27%. None of these people now have seen what it was to have a mortgage that's 27%. It's just crazy. And someone's just said, why are we giving millions to the Ukraine? That is a very good question. It's the same as us giving billions for net zero
Yeah.
when we're 0.007 or whatever it is % of world pollution. Like we don't contribute anything to global pollution, yet here we are at our broken economy after COVID, because, and I will say, the Labor government spent horrendous amounts of money and has put us right in trouble, you know, which is why this government is struggling because of the debt that came from the previous one. And it's just, you know, and we shouldn't be giving out money to anyone else. We should be actually keeping our money at home for New Zealanders first.
We need
to actually stop this.
Yeah, and I think with the pension thing, like in reply to that question, our intent is to raise, it should be 75%, like the pension should be 75% of the living wage, which, as I understand it at the moment, on an individual pension would give you about $300 a week more than what you get now. So that's what we're looking at. And people go, well, where does the money come from? Like, and you just kind of broached this one just then, Aly, with the money all going overseas. Well, when I've had recent discussions about this and done a bit of research on it, it looks more to me as though we started to lose our real control, because in the 60s we were one of the top 3 richest countries in the world. That was during the 60s. At that point, we owned all our major things. We owned just about everything that was making money in New Zealand. We owned it. And I mean the government owned it, like the rail, all of those kind of things were and energy and everything was all owned by the government. So it meant that we could be selling that and do how we wanted. We could make living cheaper. We could bring electricity down to free if we wanted to. If we had control of everything again, we could actually do that and make it really easy. But that's not what's happening. If we had control of gold, so here's an interesting one. Last year there was 6.8 tons. About 6.8 tons annually of gold is mined in New Zealand. If we had that equates to about $1.59 billion a year. Okay. If we had that, we had ownership of the gold mines, that money would be coming into us. Now, in my world, it's just logical, and I could be totally wrong. I'm no economist or anything like that, but just practical thinking. If we owned all this as a country, why would we be paying so much in taxes? We wouldn't have to. There's other countries in the world that are producing a lot of money themselves. They don't have high taxes. So we need to be looking at it in a different way. And things are changing. AI is going to change things. AI is going to change things dramatically. And in Northland,
it is.
It's going to have its effect here as well. And
I think we need to, one of our main policies is the localism over globalism, and that's just I think, shopping local, keeping New Zealand's money inside of money. I'm just going to show this question on the screen from Sharon. She said, would you fight to keep payments due on the Paris Accord? No, I think we should pull out of the Paris Accord. I think we shouldn't actually, and we did look at the cost of that legally, and it was nothing in comparison to what
we're going to end up spending.
We're going to have to pay. And also this free India trade deal as well. We've signed up to be able to meet deadlines on that with climate that there's no way that we're going to be able to meet them. And I think, so the answer to that is actually no. If we had our way and we actually had a few seats in Parliament, we'll be voting to get out of that thing. And let's face it, the left and blue are the two wings of the same vulture, as I like to call it. And really, there's not much difference between what the Labor Party and the National Party think on that. I think dare to be different with your vote this year is kind of like a good thing to be doing, and think about those things, because this stuff is breaking our country. Like the money that's leaving here is breaking us in a time where we can't afford to be giving outside bodies any money.
No.
We just can't. We've got to look after our people and create stuff here so our kids do want to come back here, because right
Yeah.
now there's just no opportunities. And I guess that will, with AI, there will be a lot of that, because there's going to be a whole heap of university graduates coming out now that aren't going to have a job.
No.
I mean, because AI is actually doing it all. So that's going to take people's jobs away.
Yeah.
So we do have to rethink it, but I don't think that the answer is actually taxing people who've worked hard and earned their property. I just don't think I don't think you should be taxed because you happen to be a property owner. You should be looked at as the devil incarnate that needs to be paying up. Well, no, we worked hard, we struggled. We had, we lived on bread and rice and bits out of the garden, you know what I mean, just so we could get by and pay a mortgage. And why the hang should we be, paying some sort of land tax on that now? So I don't agree with that stuff, but yeah.
No, I don't either. I think I just and you probably read this last night, Aly, when I wrote it, and I'll just read the first part of it. People want to be able to pay their rent or mortgage, get out of debt, give their children a good education, put food on their table, be able to save for a holiday and retirement, and be able to get good health care. And that's what the average voter needs. And I think, to me, that's what it's about. Like that's just the core principles that every party should be working under. It's like I look at, like, the thing is you've got to look at the minor parties as they come through. You've got your major parties, you've got your traditional Labor and National, and they've done what they've done, rightly or wrongly. They've been there the whole time. Like, it only used to be the two of them. Then it started the smaller parties came through, and they were only individuals that came in, and then the party grew, and it grew from that, and that gave it. So when people say, "Oh, it's a wasted vote to give it to you as a candidate," it's totally wrong, because those smaller parties all started with one candidate getting in. So when you look at it in that respect, and you've got to remember this when it comes to voting time, if you want change, if you're not happy with what's going on, then you've got to change. And it's no use just, I've voted Labor all my life and now I'm going to vote National, or vice versa. You've got to actually look at it and go, that candidate there is honest. He's going to fight tooth and nail to get everything he can for our electorate, for his electorate. And that's what you've got to look at. And so the minor parties, in my opinion, this election is going to be a really interesting one. If people actually start looking at things and understanding the MMP system and how it works, you can vote for your candidate. Like, I put it bluntly, you vote for me. If I get enough votes, I need about anywhere between 15 and 20%. It depends on how the vote spreads as a candidate. But you like what New Zealand First is doing, then you can give them their list, your list vote, and Shane's still going to get in, like he did this time. Like, this is the funny thing.
Yes, that is in Northland. That's relevant.
It is. You've got Grant McCullum, who won the national seat by about 16,000 votes. Then you had Willow Jean Prime with Labor, who got 10,000. Then you had Shane Jones with 8,000 votes. Now, Shane was third choice. He was the third choice in Northland, but because of MMP, who's calling all the shots? This is how it looked. This is what it is. And then you take Mark Cameron and I'm sorry to see Mark going, but Mark only got what was it, about 3,000 votes from memory. So even Matt King was higher than what Mark polled, and yet Mark was in Parliament. So the thing is that if you understand how the system works properly, then you can see your candidate and you go, right, that guy's going to fight for me. He's going to give everything he can, do all the hard graft, find out what he can, work for me as a good candidate, and I'll give my my list vote to the party that I think should be governing as a whole. So if you look at it in that way, there's a chance for us to be in there. Like we had, I think Northland had like four candidates in Parliament this term. No?
Yeah, well, I think it's a misunderstanding of how the system works. People are like, oh, but the New Zealand Outdoors and Freedom Party, you'll never get 5%. Well, Yeah, well, actually, you don't need 5% if you get one candidate in. If you get one candidate in and you get 2%, it's 2 to 3 people. If you get one candidate in and you get 3%, it's 3 to 4 people, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, there is something to be said for the candidate vote, but also for the party vote as well. And there's a lot of the second biggest group of voters in New Zealand, there's 829,000 of them. More than voted for Labour are those who don't vote. Do you know we only need 16% of those who don't vote, and we would have 5% of the vote, and it wouldn't even affect the vote. So I think convincing people that are so like over all the politicians that are in there, if you want to give a protest vote, give it to us, because you're going to do something that they don't want, because they don't want people going in that are going to hold them accountable, like we're doing right now with the Kiwi COVID papers. Check out Duncan Garner if you've not seen that. But like, you know, we want to hold people accountable. So accountability and transparency run over everything, whether it be education, whether it be health. It's really important that there's not deceit inside, and it's the same with bureaucracy. Really, really important. There's decisions made at council level that people seem to get no say over. That's something that we're hearing about throughout the country. So transparency and accountability is one. Localism over globalism.
Yeah.
Localism, buying local, keeping everything local, you know, not letting global influence, people coming in and mining our gold and taking all the profits. When in fact, if we were mining our own gold, we wouldn't have any debt as a country. So it's it's just, you know, there's kind
and
of
we
like,
only get around 1%.
Quantum shift.
Yeah,
there needs to be a quantum shift.
Yeah, and we only get 1% of the royalties on that, which, you know, of that money.
But a lot of what we stand for as a party is actually overarching of the whole picture, and so
I think the other part, and you just mentioned education as well, Aly, and you know, I think education is really important. Good quality education is important in this country. I went to 10 different schools when I was growing up, and there were good teachers and there were not so good teachers. There were good schools and they're not so good schools, and usually a good school had a really good headmaster or headmistress, and a bad school didn't, and it was really obvious. And I think with the downturn in our children and birth rates in New Zealand, a lot of the primary schools are going to start to have trouble with that. Like in Northland, we have a lot of trouble. The birth rate is down, but forestry has played a big part in that. People have moved away from rural areas like this one here. We had a school that had 250, it's now down to 80. You know, things like that make a difference. I think also the health thing in New Zealand, we have gone away from having small health clinics or doctors' rooms available in the village, and I think that's really important. I think that, you know, as a policy, I think we've got that written in as well, as we start to bring the health practitioners back into the community so that they know the community. We've got people in. If we have to incentivize that, then it works. You know, if you give people good food, nutritional advice and teach them how to. I know one of our policies is that we're looking at is getting people to have their own gardens and incentivize that. If you incentivize that, if we have to, they grow their own food. The children learn how to grow that food. The parents are feeding those kids good food. They're not going to school hungry like we're dealing with at the moment. And Northland has a lot of that, and I know South Auckland and other areas of the country are like that as well. But if we incentivize those things, so that that's going to stop the ambulance being at the bottom of the cliff. Like, let's get ahead of the game instead of being on the other end of it. Like we're saying, well, we go to hospital, there's no one there, we can't get in, there's too many people. Okay, well, accidents are accidents, but health-related things that we've done, that we haven't, you know, a lifestyle or whatever that we've lived, if we haven't looked after ourselves, then let's sort those things out. Let's put those health practitioners back in the community, teach people the things, and help the community. Like,
and that's New Zealand Outdoors and Freedom Party focuses on our health policy focuses on keeping people healthy rather than being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff trying to fix them. It's like, it's about keeping healthy, about eating well, about perhaps using alternative health as well, to, complementary to other medicine. And so I think it's really, that needs to be a bit opened up, and there's real potential for that as well, to keep people focused on staying healthy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then and I just see someone's just come up with you make better pretty much everything from hemp, and they did right. Like, we should be utilizing, shouldn't be pine trees we're growing. We should be growing hemp.
Hemp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hemp would
Absolutely.
it is such an amazing plant. It could be used in
Yeah.
so many ways.
Well, the laws have just loosened up on that. And I mean, the main thing with hemp is the processing, the ability to process it, because it's really gnarly to cut. Like with a combine harvester, it's like it kills machinery. So getting, those are the sort of things that need to be tackled in the kind of, imagine if we built a whole industry out of hemp. And it's a crop that turns around in 90 days, that requires no herbicide, no pesticide, no fertilizer, very little water. So it's actually a crop that grows so easily in New Zealand that could be utilised in so many things, as a hemp seeds, hemp seed oil, fibres, hemp concrete. It's just, that should be something we should be absolutely really focusing on. And
we
it
should
is
be leading.
something that
We
the
should
New
be
Zealand
leading the
Outdoors
world in that.
Party.
I think we should be leading in the world in that one. That should be
absolutely
one that, and hey, it's not going to be blocking our rivers and causing all the problems that it does. It's
no,
like you said, you can do it green. You can do it really easily without having all the other additives in it. And people talk about the runoff from pine trees and that. Well, you don't have that from hemp. Like the runoff, there's no poisons coming out. There's no toxins or anything like that. We're going about it wrong, as far as I'm concerned, in this country, and we have done for a while. And it's time for a big change. Like, we've actually, like, it's going to hurt. Like, the thing is we, as a country, we actually have to go through a form of catharsis. Like, we've got to realize that we're going to get ourselves in way much more trouble than what we're in now. And we need to look at things differently. We need to have a different overview of it, and we need people in there that are practically minded, that have come from practical situations. We've got too many people in there that are career politicians, that have come from university straight into politics. Like, once upon a time when the parliament was down to 62%, well, I think it's over a third of them were farmers. Well, that's not the same now. You haven't got practically minded people. I'm not just saying farmers, but engineers and other people that were brought through systems that understand what happens when certain things play out. And we need those kind of people back in power. We've got 133, I think it is, in Parliament at the moment.
Yeah.
And we're worse off than we were when we had 62 or 63.
Wait a minute, didn't we vote to lessen the number of politicians at one point, which seemed to just disperse off into nowhere?
For me personally, Aly, I think this is the big issue that we have, is we don't understand how the political arena actually works. There's not a lot of people that really understand it. And like, I'm the first to admit, I thought I knew. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about it. And I'm only just scratching the surface now.
What I do know is that there's far too much corporate control of politics globally, but there's far too much corporate control in New Zealand of politics. I think lobbyists should be outlawed. That's my personal opinion, rather than I just don't think you should be allowed to have people come in and lobby. And it's like, you can sort of see it. So, I mean, there's a lot to be battled, but truth, freedom, transparency, localism, there's a lot of things that can play over the top as an overarching thing. But I think we're just about rounding up. So I just wanted to say I'm running the track along the bottom there as to where you can get hold of us and where you can follow Sean on Facebook. So he's just at Sean Brickland for Northland. And so do follow Sean's page and go and ask him some questions on there. If you see the stream and you want to go and chat to Sean or join our page, please join our page. And of course, you can go to the where is it? Right there. You can go to
Yep.
the support link. You can do that on your phone, or if you don't like QR codes, and I can understand if you feel a bit odd about QR codes, quite a few of us do, you can just go to www.nzofp.co.nz and join us, because we'd love to have you on board. If you know anyone that you think would like to run, we've got a few spaces out there, and we've got a few more candidates coming up very shortly that we're going to announce. But hey, thanks for joining us, Sean, and we will have you back on for chats, and we will do some chats together when we're away as well. Now we have this platform, and any last words before we go?
Thanks, Aly. It's great to get an opportunity like this. Like it's, I'm pretty much a recluse. You know that you've met me now, and so it's a big shift for me to come out and do this, and get out of my comfort zone, because I left being in the public eye quite a few years back now, and it's something I was quite happy to do. But I think it's important now that we, as a nation, we actually look at alternatives, that we start to understand where we're actually standing. And I know a lot of people go on their phones and they Google and they everything like this, the questions, but I can tell you now it's not always correct. You actually have to see things sometimes. You actually have to delve into a little bit more than what you realize. And I think, like I said earlier, this election's a really important one. Like, it's really look closely at your candidates. Like, go to the meetings, like talk to them, ring them, email them, come online, do these things. Oh, by the way, if I don't answer straight away, my apologies. I'm probably either hunting, fishing, on the Harley, or I'm out in the bush somewhere. Okay, so my apologies. I could be off grid. But if you start thinking about how you vote in a different way, you give smaller parties a chance. You give candidates that you think really deserve it. I know there's been candidates come up, and especially I watched one last election that should have gone in. He would have done an amazing job, but it's just how it falls. But if you think about the reality of where we're at in this country, if you think where the future is, you've got to be thinking 20 years down the track or 30 years down the track. And this is where I'm coming from with the rail, with the forestry. Here's another one. I'll flip another one in for you quickly. Motorbikes, all those bike guys that are riding bikes, I totally get where you're coming from. I know exactly what you're saying about the ACC levies that have been placed on us as far as our registration goes, going up over $900. That's going to affect me a lot. And when you think about it, there's only around 1,750 injuries, ACC claims from motorbikes. There's 30,000 from push bikes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? And now we've got electric bikes. We've got all those other things. I'm not saying that we should be doing something about push bikes, but where's the equality in this? Where is it that we get an equal? Like, a lot of the accidents are caused by cars. Why are we paying for that when there's only 1,750 of us? We're cheaper to run. We're more efficient. We don't do as much damage on the road. There's all of those things. We're in a fuel crisis. We should be encouraged to be riding motorbikes, not driving cars. Those kind of things to me are really important. So all you bike riders out there, get a hold of me. Let's do something about this one. As for fishing, well, we know pretty much in Northland that we don't want this bill to go through in the way that it is. Once again, I'm on your side with that. Matt Watson and co were called out in Parliament. I don't think that was fair. I think that was totally unfair on Matt. All he's ever done is worked hard for Northland, hard for New Zealand fishing, and to take a side swipe at him like that was uncalled for. And I think that bill needs to, it needs a lot of changes done to it. We can't have it the way it is. We're not going to get. I love my fishing. I love being able to go out and get a catch and get food for the family and everything. So with all of that in mind,
we're submitting to them all the time. And there's the conservation one that's coming up. You would have seen that on our page where they're looking at selling conservation land and putting 60-year leases on and locking us out of our great outdoors. I mean, everybody should actually put a submission into that. It's pretty simple. Find it on our page and just click on the link and just go and say you don't want that. Go and read the bits of the bill and what they're going to do. These days it's very easy to shove it in AI and say, what does this bill mean? And it will come back and tell you what it means in real terms.
And
look,
You know
Yep.
what, Aly, with that with leasing that lease of conservation, why aren't we doing what China does and leasing these forestry blocks? Why aren't those blocks going into lease instead? If they want to put forestry on, then lease them off the farmers, pay them a good deal, and do it that way. There's other ways we should have done this. We shouldn't be selling the land off. All it's done is increased land prices in rural areas and outpriced farmers.
Yeah.
And now we can't do it.
It's-
Like if I wanted to increase the farm, there's no way I couldn't compete against a big foreign interest. It's just not going to happen. So there's things that we can do, but we've got to get the big players to do it. And somehow we need people like myself and you, Aly, and Sue and Lester and people like that in there to actually make these conversations happen.
And that's going to make people dare to vote different.
Yeah.
Just dare to vote different and vote for real people, not career politicians, and get a few good real people in there that will actually push back on the globalist agenda that we've got, that's being pushed through lobbyists and pushed through the major parties. So there's your thought, dare to vote different. And on that, I'll leave us. Hey, thanks very much for joining us tonight. And thanks everyone who's come along. If I didn't get to your question, you can always fire it on the page and we'll try and get you there. Do consider joining the party, because we are small and only funded by individuals, not by great big corporate sponsors. So help us to get in there. And if you can help us, there's lots of ways you can do that on the website by just clicking. So go visit nzofp.co.nz. And thanks very much, Sean, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Aly.
Bye for now.